Have you actually made more money from consuming all the self-development content? From reading all the books, from doing all the habits, all the routines, all these different things? Or did it actually make you more broke, more confused, and more stuck? And what you learn in this video is exactly the reason why self-development and all this consumption is probably making you poor and more stuck, especially if you have a lot of different interests and talents. And I'll share exactly how to get out of this, how to see if it's hurting you, and what to do instead, and how to move forward so you actually make progress and make progress towards your goals. The way people consume self-development content and stuff like this nowadays is usually through social media. And what happens is people spend their time on multiple platforms. So they're on Instagram, they are on YouTube, then they have podcasts as well. Okay. Then there's TikTok. Let's do a P for pods. And many others as well. Maybe they're subscribed to like 10 different newsletters. They are in like 10 different school communities or like communities in general. 3 different coaching programs. And then they obviously read like 10 different books at the same time. And this is a problem. This is a big problem. Because the main problem is that on all these different platforms, you're probably not just following one guy. That wouldn't be actually a problem. The problem is that you read all this stuff and consume all this content from different people. And there are many different ways that lead to Rome. So whatever your goal is, maybe it's weight loss, maybe it's meeting someone, maybe it's making money, maybe it's moving somewhere, I don't know, feeling more happy, fulfilled, finding your purpose, finding what to do with your life, getting clarity. It doesn't matter what it is. But the problem is that if you listen to like 20 different people and you have some guy on Instagram, you see however long they are, like 60 seconds. I don't consume any short form content, but let's say you consume like a 60-second reel from some guy telling you how to find your purpose. Then you watch an hour-long YouTube video on finding your purpose. Then you watch like 3 different podcasts from like some gurus or some monk that tells you how to do this. Then you have some ex-Navy SEAL guy sharing how to find purpose in everyday life. Then you go ahead and you watch another like super in-depth video where they put down all the research on purpose and what to do instead and all these different things. And then you read a blog, you get a newsletter, and maybe you even order a book on this topic. And what will happen is that you will do nothing. The end result is pretty much that you sit over here and you're completely clueless and you're confused, okay? You end up very confused because obviously everybody is saying different stuff, okay? Boom. Confused. Let's write this out. Because simply everybody is telling you different things, and it's normal and natural because everybody has a different route to success. And as the saying goes, too many cooks over-salten the soup. There's a saying in Germany, I don't know what it is in English, but it's somewhere along those lines, that if you have a soup and you have 20 different cooks and everybody's seasoning it, it will probably end up being too salty and it's not going to taste good. The same goes for all this personality and self-development content. And the problem is once you start being confused, you're very unclear of what your next action is. You're still in the same spot that you are here. This is your current situation. And let's say you're unclear what to do with your life and you just graduated college or you just gotten out of a job or you feel unfulfilled in your job and you want to find out what your purpose is, okay? This distance and this gap is still exactly the same. And now you go ahead and you consume all this different content. And the problem is a little bit the more time you spend on these platforms and the more you consume this kind of content, the more content you get shown. And since you are still trying to bridge this gap over here, the more you start to click on this stuff because you obviously believe that if you watch this podcast or if you watch this YouTube video or if you read that book, that it will help you to actually bridge this gap. But the problem is that if you watch one of these videos and it's an actually good video and it's complete, then honestly, it actually might bridge this gap. Even if it's a short one. But if you just watch this one video and the advice in the video is really good, and then you turn off your laptop and you go immediately to implement that advice that you've just been given, and you start to use it to bridge this gap, then it might actually work. But since you listen to like 20 different guys and everybody's telling you something different, one guy is maybe telling you to go over here in order to reach this goal, then another guy is telling you over there, another girl is sharing this advice, another girl is over there, another girl is over here, and then you read a book on this topic. And what ends up happening is you keep going into all these different directions and you actually end up going nowhere. You actually end up staying exactly in the same spot that you were because you wanted to go over here, but you tried all these different advices from different people and you maybe didn't even act at all because you felt so confused on what to do. If you have a to-do, you probably know this as well. If you have a to-do list of like 20 different things that all seem important and that all seem like good to-dos, you probably don't do anything the entire day. And it's a problem because you don't know which one is actually signal and which one is noise. And since you don't know and you don't know how to separate it, you stay stuck. You don't do anything, you don't act because you don't want to do the wrong thing either. Because you heard this guy say this one, but if you do this one, then you're not doing that one. And I guess the other guy said, you have to do this one. If I'm not, so I may as well just not move at all. And those are the two main problems. You either move in like 20 different directions, which is not going to get you to your goal, or you consume all these advices that you end up so confused with such a long to-do list that you're afraid of actually making a mistake and you don't do anything at all. And this is a problem, okay? And let me share a little story. So around when I was 24, I built up my agency and I was making like 20K per month with the agency. And at the same time, I've gotten into a long-term relationship and we had some personal problems that I had in my personal life, which I'm not going too into depth. And I also had in my business, I was at a level, I was like servicing 7 or 8 clients just by myself, and they all were paying me a retainer to do their Facebook ads and write copies and stuff like this. And because I had this personal issues as well and my business problem, I started to get not into burnout, but I was like spreading myself very thin and I started to exhaust myself very deeply. And I didn't recover enough. I didn't look out for myself enough. And I was just working. And I started to get really exhausted. And because I started to get so exhausted, I started to get panic attacks. Okay. And once I started to get these panic attacks, they started out like I had my first 1 or 2, and then I had some more and stuff like this. And I wanted to get rid of them as soon as I possibly can because they're super uncomfortable and they're not something you want to wish for anybody. And I kept having them. And what I did is, because I know if you type this in on YouTube, you see like 20 different guides. There are so many resources on how to actually overcome panic attacks. And I strongly believe that people struggle with this for years. What I did, I went on Amazon and I bought the best book I can find on panic attacks. Just one. I bought this one book. I actually bought more, but I bought this one book and I read it, I think at least 3 times, maybe 4 times. And it laid out a very simple method, just like 4 steps. And I used this one method religiously. I didn't consume anything after that. I didn't listen to any podcasts. I didn't watch any YouTube videos on this. I didn't do any retreats on this. I didn't buy a coaching program on this. I didn't do anything. I just bought this one book and then I bought 2 more books, but they actually just kept saying like kind of the same thing. But I put them away because I noticed they're just distracting me from actually doing the thing. And because I just had this one guide on how to overcome panic attacks, I was so religiously implementing this and not focused and not confused with anything else. I didn't divide my attention on anything, and I was just like this, going very straight into one direction, but very far. Okay? And it didn't take me long. It really only took me like maybe 1 or 2 months, maybe 3, of actually overcoming my panic attacks like permanently. And since then, he laid out in the book that sometimes you have setbacks and then panic attacks come back, especially when you make an upgrade in your life and you go to like the next level. So it's pretty much like this. If you start panic attacks, you're down here and then you overcome them. Okay, let's say you're here, then you started to overcome them. And then once you actually start to level up to a new stage in your life like this, then you start to actually have another few panic attacks over here before you start like with the recovery. The best way is actually a graph. No, so I just noticed. So you start with the panic attacks. Let's say it goes down a little bit. It keeps getting worse. But then I started to make this progress. Okay, amazing. Then you think you're completely free of it and you're over it. Then you have a little dip, especially if you have some big life change. Maybe you move to a new place, you get a new relationship, you get a promotion in your job, anything like this. You start to get a little setback and then you start to push up again. Okay, and then kind of like this. That's how you heal these panic attacks. And I have done this in like 3 months or something like this. It didn't take me that long. And it only happened because of this, because I just had one resource that I was religiously consuming, and I know it was the best one. I've taken a look at like 2 other books, and I realized, okay, this one is the best one. So I put the other ones away, and I just focused on this one book and this one resource. It doesn't have to be a book, by the way. But it has to be something that is like where the idea is actually really, really good. It can be a podcast, it can be a YouTube video, it can be something. But the idea has to actually be really good and it has to get you to your goal. And what ended up happening is my goal was simply to be free of these panic attacks, okay? And I was here in panic attacks and I had this one resource and I looked at other ones before, but then I realized, nah, this one doesn't make sense, this one doesn't make sense, this one doesn't make sense. And then I just locked in on the one that does make sense. Boom. And it only took me like 90 days to completely free myself of these panic attacks. And obviously I had progress after like 2 weeks, but then you slowly improve. But then it was legitimately over. And that's what you want to do. Instead of randomly consuming all this different stuff that isn't serving you anything, you want to sit down for a moment and figure out like, okay, I'm here. Like, what do I want? What's my one goal? And why is this so important to me? And then take a look at the gurus, the people, the YouTube channels, the podcasts, whatever it is, on what advice or what method actually works for you the best. Because every method doesn't necessarily, it means that it applies to you or that it's the best way for you of doing this thing. But you want to find out, okay, which one works the best for me? Who's my guy? What's the mentor that I connect with the most or that has the most knowledge in this place? And that you also have like some personal, you don't have to know him, but at least you feel some kind of connection to him, okay? Or you want to be like him, something like this. And then you just want to forget about all the other things and just lock in on this guy or girl. And don't consume anything else for at least a certain period of time until you achieve that goal. But this is the way forward. I've done the same thing in fitness when I build up my body, in dating, in all these different areas in life. I just found the one guy or the one person that is really legitimately has already achieved this one over here and can simply tell me how to get there as quick as humanly possible. And then forget everything else. Just forget it. Get a YouTube newsfeed blocker, delete your social media apps. Don't consume any random podcasts if you don't have a certain intention for doing this so, and don't just mindlessly consume because it just will confuse you and it will completely waste your resources. Yeah, and that's it. And if you like these kinds of videos, then check out my channel. Just click on my name and go watch my most popular videos right now. There are a lot of videos on these kinds of topics, and you probably find this very interesting, especially if you watched all the way to here. And also subscribe to my channel. I upload very consistently videos around these topics if you want to go deeper, and leave me a like as well. And then I'll see you in the next video.